Hi, my name is Megan Hogan, and I'm the Chief Diversity Officer of Goldman Sachs. I'm really excited to be here today to answer 5 questions that I was sent in advance from Alumni Society. All right, so let's get started with the first question. You intersect across many affinities. You're Dominican, you're Black, you're a native New Yorker, and you're a mom of 2 children. How do you bring your diverse identities and experiences to the table when thinking about the best ways to recruit diverse candidates? And so I'd like to answer this question first by sharing a quotation with Nina Simone. And that is, what I hope to do all the time is to be so completely myself, to be so much myself that people are confronted with what I am inside and out. And in this way, they have to see things about themselves. If I have a conversation with somebody, I can be honest in every part of that conversation, and they're forced to be honest as well. And so often what I take from that quotation is that I need to be authentically me, whether it's with candidates, people at the firm, or stakeholders. When I think about people I want to recruit into the firm, if I'm authentically myself in all of those interactions, they feel as though they can be the same way. And I don't want anybody spending any time on being anybody other than who they are, feeling like an imposter, feeling like an insider. They should be thinking about why they want to come to Goldman, why they want to stay at the firm, what kind of career opportunities there can be, and most importantly, on the work. If they're spending any other time on trying to be someone else, that takes up too much space, brings too much anxiety into the system. And so by me being authentic, other people can be authentic too and focus on the work. And when I think about being authentic in conversations that I have with senior stakeholders, I want them to be thoughtful about how they're assessing candidates, how they're interacting with them during the interview process, and importantly, how they integrate them into the firm. And so if I'm authentic in my feedback about how they should take implicit bias out of the system, how they should think about assessing evenly, and how they should build in equity in terms of how they integrate people into the firm, that is going to have huge return and huge impact on the firm at large. So I would say transparency and being authentic is what I try to bring in every interaction that I have with people, both inside and outside the firm. Okay, second question. The financial services sector is often not perceived as diverse or inclusive, which makes your role both a challenge and an opportunity. What are your immediate and long-term DEI goals to drive progress? So I would say at the center of both my short-term and my long-term goals is building trust within the organization and with candidates that I interact with. And so similar to my first statement, I think that the only way that we can develop deep relationships with each other is to build trust. And that not only makes the organization more inclusive, but people feel like they really belong. If you build trust with your managers, you can have really transparent career dialogues about your trajectory and what you want to do at the firm. If you develop trust, you can talk about personal things that are affecting you that might inhibit the work that's going on within the 4 walls of Goldman Sachs. And so if we don't have those things, we don't have honest conversations about what people want to do at Goldman Sachs. And we certainly don't know how people are feeling. I'll take the last 12 and a half months, at least for me, have been very challenging trying to think about the anniversary of George Floyd is coming up. We continue to see rising anti-Asian sentiment, and more recently, unfortunately, rising anti-Semitism. All these things are really wearing on me. And was it not for, really transparent conversations with my manager, he wouldn't have known what was going on. But I have that strong sense of trust with him. And by being able to have a really good conversation about what's challenging me personally, it's able to free up the mind space for me to think about the work and what I'm doing within the 4 walls of Goldman Sachs. Okay, question number 3. Goldman Sachs has been vocal about neurodiversity hiring initiatives. Can you tell us what it means to hire for neurodiversity and what it is that Goldman Sachs is doing in this area? So what I love about our neurodiversity hiring initiative, it's really bringing the intersection of the personal and the professional for me. And so I do have a son who is on the spectrum and was diagnosed around the age of 3. And it was really important for me in my role to think about what was the future for Jackson. Really important for me to know that he has the same opportunities as anybody else who is highly intelligent like he is, but just learns differently. And so back in 2019, we announced on World Autism Day that we were launching our first neurodiversity hiring initiative, and it's been fantastic. The number of people that have reached out and said, I now know that Goldman really sees me. When it says diversity, it really means all kinds of diversity. It means that you really do want different perspectives, different thought leadership, different ways of thinking, because you know it's going to impact the way that we innovate for our clients and our communities. So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. The candidates, the recruits, and now our full-time analysts have been absolutely fantastic. We've seen increased productivity from this talent, whether it's in engineering or operating roles, and we're really excited to expand the initiative next year to legal and compliance. And so it's not only personally important for me, but also for many people across Goldman Sachs who now say, I never wanted to actually disclose that I'm on the spectrum, and now I can, because the firm has been so bold and so transparent in the fact that we want to recruit and maintain this talent at the firm. I've just been really overwhelmed by the personal positive stories, and for people who have children themselves who now are hopefully the future of Goldman Sachs. Okay, fourth question. You joined Goldman Sachs in 2014. How has the culture at Goldman Sachs changed since you started? So I would say certainly under our now CEO, David Solomon's leadership, there's a lot more discussion on external events at the firm, how they're impacting our people personally, which has been really exciting to have amazing thought leaders come into the firm and talk about world events, talk about the world of academia, talk about psychological safety at work has been really, really exciting. And so I would say since I started over the last 7 years, there's been a lot more challenging conversations that have been happening in the workplace. And that has led to a lot of people saying, I wasn't so sure about Goldman, but now seeing their thought leadership on diversity and equity and inclusion has really made me rethink what it means to work in financial services, what it means to work at Goldman Sachs, and how I can be authentic. That constant of authenticity keeps coming up. How I can be authentic when I come to Goldman Sachs, because you aren't afraid of having these challenging conversations in the workplace. You know that when people come to Goldman Sachs, they have to bring their whole selves to work. And by not bifurcating the two, that's made a huge impact on our employees and how they perceive the firm, how they're satisfied with the firm, how they interact with their managers. And so it's been all for the better. And I hope that in the future going forward, we see a lot more of that as well. Okay, and last question. Oh, this is going by so quickly. Can you share with us one bold prediction or sentiment on your hope for the future of DEI? And so when I think about this answer, I would say that I have been so pleasantly surprised by the level of empathy that the firm has had during, COVID. We had a bunch of understandably challenging periods of time with the intersection of a race crisis, a health crisis. People weren't sure that we were going to make it over this hump, which we have now in 2021, with a lot more positivity and optimism with, growing vaccine rates. It's still very challenging, but I share a lot of hope and optimism. And over the last year, I think people have built the muscle of empathy more than we could have, should we have done any number of learnings, any number of speakers coming in. It really unfortunately took an event of this magnitude for really people to build that muscle. And my bold prediction is it's not going anywhere. I think what people have learned during this last year, where the leveling of the playing field has happened in terms of the challenging issues that we've all faced, will really stick through us as we go forward. So that concept of allyship, I don't think is going anywhere. I don't think it's going to be a buzzword. I think people really understand that they need to learn what it means to be an ally in the moment, what it means to be an upstander. And while we still have a ways to go to make sure that everybody feels included, I think we made tons of progress in the last year. And I would gauge to venture that it's not going anywhere past 2021. It's here to stay, and we should build on that empathy, that allyship going forward. So thanks so much for having me. I hope you're enjoying the Leadership Summit and look forward to talking with you soon.